Bizarre Brain Comics.
The children of the night. Hello and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. This time, from 1975, I want to take a look at one of the stories in here, DC Comics Weird War Tales number 42. This is from 1975. So let's see what the big book of knowledge has to say. Okay, DC Comics Weird War Tales number 42 from 1975. And the story we're going to look at was written by Jack Oleck with art by Ernie Chua, or Chan, and Ricardo Villamonte. Okay, in Weird War, it is a supernaturally oriented war comic published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. And it was later resurrected for, I think, a miniseries. And it was a horror war anthology title, which came about in part by the change in the Comics Code Authority. And it featured a horror host, Death himself. It was just the bony visage and usually portrayed in various military uniforms. Okay, and later fan favorites creators Walt Simonson and Frank Miller, among others, made early appearances in the pages of Weird War. And recurring characters began to appear, which are not going to focus on here. We'll touch on them another time, such as G.I. Robot, The War That Time Forgot, late of Star-Spangled War, and The Creature Commandos. Again, the War That Time Forgot was about circumstances that pitted soldiers and sailors against dinosaurs. Okay. Let us return to the horrifying days of World War II and see what weird goings on there was. And here we are. We see, you can see this is a worn copy. It's a good reading copy, but it's in rough shape. And this great cover illustration by Joe Kubert. He did so many of the war comics covers and interior stories over the decades for DC. And he was great at that stuff. And this is a rather kind of spooky, horrifying type illustration. You see the skeletons flying what's obviously a World War One. You don't see a whole lot of it, but you can clearly see that it's a World War One biplane engaging a World War II. Looks like it might be a Mustang. And this book was was edited by Joe Orlando, and I think he edited most of the horror titles at one time or another. And he was, of course, an alum of the EC Comics days, doing both science fiction and horror art. We'll cover him at another time. Okay, and this story that we're going to look at, it was penciled, which is unusual, it was penciled by Ernie Chua, or Chan, and inked by Ricardo Viamonte. Usually, Ernie inked his own pencils, or he was an inker on other people's pencils. And that's one of the things about his inking style, as I've mentioned before, was very, very strong and had a tendency to overpower the style of the penciler. So sometimes it's very difficult to tell who the penciler was through Ernie's inks. Now, funny little thing, because Ernie was until '76, he was always credited as Ernie Chua. And I guess, from what I understand, that name, he's a Filipino, that name was a mistake. It was a typo on his birth certificate. So he had to live his whole life with that last name. And then when he finally got his American citizenship in, I think it said 76, I think is when it was, he got his name legally changed to Chua, as it was supposed to. I mean, to Chan, as it was supposed to be. Yeah. Again, Ernie Chua, is from 1940 to 2012, and he's a Filipino-American comic artist, known for his years of work for Marvel and DC Comics, primarily as an inker and sometimes penciler on Conan titles, as well as Batman. And Ernie primarily focused on non-superhero characters, with noticeable exception of his run on Batman titles. But he focused primarily on horror, war, and sword and sorcery. He came to the U.S. in 1970, and he started in comics in '72 at DC on horror mystery titles. And he was a primary cover artist for DC from '75 to '77. So now we'll go in and take a look. And right off the bat, since someone else is doing the inks on his pencils for a change, his style is not as prominent as is otherwise common. Okay, and then this old soldiers never die, and of course there is our host, Death himself, in an American GI uniform, and the story starts. It's right in the middle of a battle, and there's this old church, and the American soldiers are pinned down by the German forces, and they need to get out of there. I think that they can get out, but they're waiting for their orders from their captain. The chaplain, he rushes into the church to the captain and say, "We got to get out of here. These guys we're waiting for your orders." And the captain is right there. He's got candles. He's constructed himself an altar, and he says, "No, not yet. I've got something I've got to do. To call on the powers of darkness. It's one of the reasons why I came specifically here for this, because what is the best place to bring the devil forth." And meanwhile, you see all this battle action is very dynamic and destructive, and action going on outside while they're relatively safe inside the church. And the captain tells the chaplain this and said, "We can't wait." And he rushes back to the men, hearing them who are being pinned down. What's the story? What's the story, Padre? He says, he's not ready yet. Meanwhile, inside, all his devilish ceremony conjures forth a demon, and says, "I want you to bestow upon me the virtual immortality. So I don't want to get one day older, and the enemy cannot kill me." Because, of course, there's more in their discussion than that, but that's the basic gist of it. So okay, you got it. Well, meanwhile, kablooey, kablooey, kablooey. And but as sacrificed, you must kill the Padre. The Padre, no, I can't do that. But then the demon is gone. So he goes out. Okay, boys, let's get ready to move out. And they hustle. They get up. They hustle. Run. And as I said, this is rough because that page is coming out. And they rush and engage a German squad. So they're fighting off. In the midst of the confusion of the battle, boom! He kills the Padre. Boom! Said, "Captain, no, don't!" Bang! It was done. The captain turned away, unable to look at his grisly handiwork. He took a step, two, and kablooey! And there he is. "Oh, you liar! You said that no enemy would be able to harm me. What happened? What?" "But no enemy has harmed you, Captain. You stepped on a landmine, but it was an American landmine." "I see, all right. I'll take your word for it, but at least you kept your part of a bargain out." But the demon says, "Look," and he sees his own corpse laying there. "What? You said I'd live forever, but you tricked me, you lied." But I haven't lied to you, Captain, quite the contrary. All I promised was that you would never grow a day older. And I've kept that promise. You never will. Now, it's finished, Captain. Now it's time to go. Yes, he wasn't specific enough. And it's a really nice artwork, nice lighting, it's dynamic, shows the action, great anatomy. Of course, Ernie Chan was always good at that. And I'm not going to cover the other stories. I do want to show you this. This is another Jack Oleck written story with Kiko Redondo doing the art. And this is the cover story. It looks like in that shot, it looks like a Spitfire, but with a Stuka. But in the midst of this aerial dogfight, we'll get the back stuff here. Some very nicely drawn stuff, and there's some really nice aircraft, drawing real nice aircraft. And while he's this. Yeah, it is a Spitfire. While the Spitfire is engaged in combat with a Stuka, he's about to be shot down, and out of nowhere comes this World War I biplane, and it takes on that German Stuka and gets shot down and crashes down in the lake, but it saves the British pilot. Later, he goes and he dives into the lake, and he finds the remains that have been sitting there since World War I, the skeletal remains of the pilot. And he sees, because we find out in the story that this pilot, his father was also a pilot who died in World War I. And he sees that this is the remains of his own father, who was shot down in World War I, and who saved him. And we got another creepy one, Alfredo Alcala doing the artwork. And just some weird stuff, and appropriately weird. That's all we've got for Weird War Tales. Thank you for joining me. I hope you like that. Please like, share, subscribe. Share it with other war buffs or weird buffs. And leave a comment. And remember, comics are art.